There's a little bit of danger in how I'm working here, and that, and just something I want to share with you, and it's something that I know is on my mind when I'm working on this, is that the paper can get played out. So if you do the sky and you really layer up and get it super heavy, then it can get hard to come back in and get the trees in. The other thing is you want your sky to relate to your trees. So doing a sky finished and then putting the trees over the top of them, finished and not interact, like letting those colors interact, will make the trees look like a disappointing cutout. And it's because there's in a sense of the light of the sky wrapping around and diffusing the edges of those trees. So I know that's on my mind as I'm blocking this in. That I don't want to push so hard that I can't, layer up so much that I can't layer back over with the pastel. But you can see, like as we've talked through this whole course, just really looking for those shapes. And those shapes exist in something that's obvious, like a tree or a bush, but also in something less obvious, like a sky. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here is just brushing off a little bit of that pastel so I can go back in and layer back over. You can also, this is sometimes where a fixative can be a useful thing. If you've layered up and it's just not taking any more pastel, then you can use a little fixative sometimes and get a little bit of life back in that paper. And here I'm just not using denatured alcohol or anything. I'm just wiping off. And then you can see I've got a dust mask on. See? Just showing you dust mask on because, here I'm hitting that pastel when I brush it. The reason I'm hitting the board there is to get that pastel dust to release. So that I can go back in. And I apologize, there's a little bit of funky editing here that putting these together that I don't know why that's happening. Okay, we've got our basic elements here. Hopefully some good tunes on the earbuds. So now I'm going back in and I'd call this a second pass. I'm coming back in and warming up just along the horizon there. Just a sense that there's a spot there that, while it's not quite clearing, there's a little bit of sunlight working through those clouds. So it's a creamy yellow white. And you can see that, notice that I'm in and out of the picture here. The reason I'm in and out of the picture is I'm stepping back and I'm looking at it. Put a little bit in there, look at it, analyze it. Don't let myself get caught in one area that, I want to see if things are working as a whole. So now, this is the exciting part. I'm going to start putting some of the I don't want to call them leaves, the mass in the sky here. So one of the things that you'll notice here is that the color I'm using for the aspen leaves and the masses of leaves up in the sky is darker than the masses at the bottom. And it's a function of, those, if you were going to shimmy up that tree and pick those leaves and compare them to the leaves that are on the bushes and on the smaller aspens, they would look exactly the same. But it's a matter of how our eye functions. So when I'm looking up at that tree, I am seeing a dark mass against the light mass. And so when there's strong contrast like that, stronger contrast like that, a dark against a light, and you're looking into that light, you're not going to see, our eyes just can't pick up as much color. Our eyes are picking up more of the value. So that's something to keep in mind, that color functions based on what's around it. So you've got light on those leaves down toward the bottom that are against a dark. So, as I've said many times throughout this course, and I will hit up these important points over and over and over again, and that is that you're always creating a shape, even if it's a really broken pattern. So I'm developing these like areas here, because that makes more sense. One, for the efficiency of not just having to find that pastel again, but also because I'm starting to, as I'm working that central area, I'm comparing it to the quality of both mark making and shape on the left and the right. And you'll notice that the shapes on the left, on the edges, on the left and right, I'm using the side of the pastel and I'm touching the paper lightly, just wisping it on there. Whereas the one in the center, you can see a lot more distinct little pieces of color. And that's just a matter of really trying to think about how we focus. So the focal area is just a little bit left of center on those two aspen trees. So I want to keep the stuff toward the right and left less detailed, less contrast, less everything. I want to keep it a little bit, almost out of focus. So now there's the pause of, okay, what happens next? Define those trunks a little bit more. Went a little darker there. But you can see, one of the things about blocking in something complex, how do I block in a crazy aspen grove? Oh my goodness, they're so complex. How do I do that? Well, you do that by just finding those anchor points. and develop those anchor points, and then you've got something to compare things off of. So every time I'm stepping back here, it's a moment of contemplation. Step back, evaluate, try to decide what strategically next is the most important thing, and start to address that. I liked putting in, you can see I put in a little bit of a few of the darks, those dark gashes. I don't know what they call those. I think there's a name for them on the aspens, just so I can start to get a sense of the extremes of my contrast. So I think I have a Diane Townsend here, pastel, for what it's worth. A little greener color, because there's that nice transition between some areas that are completely changed and some areas that are still in the transition. Now, generally, an aspen grove will change, a single aspen grove, they'll change together. So if you see one group of aspens that are completely green still, and then another ones that are golden, yellow, orange, you'll know that other aspen grove it's a different organism. Organism, is that the right word? No. I'm an artist, not a science teacher. We've got a warmer color here, orange. One of the things to ask yourself when you're working on a piece like this is, just to keep asking yourself about edges. Do I want a soft, ephemeral edge, or do I want a hard, really defined edge? And that's what's going to make a painting like this interesting is the edge work. Where you got the diffuse edges and where you have the harder, more distinct edges. And some of that is a matter of how hard you press on the pastel. So there's this wonderful warmth. Now, here's one of the things that I'm really thinking about in terms of the light shadow in this. Even though it's an overcast day, so there's not strong cast shadows, but there still are shadow areas. The light is cool on an overcast day like this, so the shadows are warm. So unlike when I'm doing a sunny landscape, you would have a lot of blue in those shadows, a lot of cool colors. But in this case, you get to bring out a lot of rich, dark browns and reds, and so those shadows will be a nice contrast with the blues of the distant hills. But I'm resisting building up the layers here. Just with the side of the pastel. So essentially, if you remember way back to our early lesson in painterly pastel. And I did an oil and a pastel together, and I talked about using the side of the pastel, like you're using a big paintbrush, and that's what I'm doing here. And you can see I'm not pressing especially hard on here because the layers I'm putting on here, I don't want these layers to cover over the previous layer. I'm wanting some of that color, that warm to come through. And here's where I get excited because what do I have here? I've got complementary color scheme in that foreground. So now you'll notice that there was a bit of a jump here. My apologies for that. I was on the Eric Rhodes does the Plein Air podcast, and he had me on that. And so I was demonstrating for about, half hour, 40 minutes. I was demonstrating on this piece. So in that one, I did focus on that central area a little bit more than maybe I would have, just so that they could see some progress. But not to worry, there is, we still have hours worth of work left. So anything you would have lost in that half hour, will get made up. And I can explain you through it. But, that is one way of working, to work that central area, the center of interest, and then work your way out. And, then you kind of define how finished that is. So you can see that's the harder edge there. So when you got a pastel out, don't get just sucked into one area. Use that color. Carry it to, other places that it will work. One of the things you'll notice that on the trunk of those central two pastels is that I've started to add in some of the shadow area inside of the Aspen. And you can see that, as I said before, that Aspen's going to be a dark against a light when it moves against the sky. And then generally a light against a dark on the ground plane. Although the yellow is on those bushes is so bright that I don't know if it is a light against a dark as it normally is. See how when I initially just lay those in, that they against that sky, that's got a lot of work done on it, that they look flat and not integrated at all, and that's fine. I'm just blocking things in, so I know that that's not how they're going to stay.